All right, welcome everybody. And Adrian and Carla are here to help you out in the chat, but let me share my screen. Now this is for data managers. So hopefully everybody can see my screen now. Let me pull up chat just in case. Okay. So kind of simplified version of everybody in here is hopefully you're either a data manager or you're like an administrator or you're the person that's going to be setting up the back end, the TOPS Pro side of Teacher Portal. Um, some people think they can just register and it's done. You do have to make some things set up. You got to set up the user account. You have to set up the personnel account. You have to set up the classes. You have to enroll students in those classes. There is some work on the back end. Okay. So if you're like just a teacher and you're like, hey, I heard that it's going to be that, you can watch and we'll kind of go over a little bit towards the end. But this is mainly for the people that are going to be setting it up on the back end. Okay. Um, so right now we're just in TOPS Pro. We're on the Rolling Hills, simulation server, 4908, administrator 10. It's the greatest number. We all know this. Password is just admin. And so we're just going to log into our little simulation server. You guys can do this as well. Nothing can be broken. It resets every night. But we're just going to demonstrate how you're going to set this up. All right. So the first step is going to be making sure you have your user stuff and everything set up properly as the DM. So that's going to be when you go to organization and you go to users, you'll see all your users. If you've been an agency before and like you have your classes and teachers have access to TE and they have accounts and they're using it, but now it's like, hey, we heard the teacher portal is way easier. Very simple, very quick setup. If it's new, we're obviously going to go through all the steps. So the first thing is making sure your data manager, whoever that's going to be, so you'll notice there's two groups here. You'll see something called an access group section, and you see something called an access roles. So if we double click on our user, doesn't matter. We're going to notice we have a situation. We're going to click edit, and you're going to see that access control option. Okay, it says access is granted based on group and individual rights. And then it says access is granted based on roles for teacher portal. So that's the one slight difference. You can use groups and you can use roles, both work, but as the data manager, you have to use roles. Okay, the reason why is because you have to give some role access. You can allow them to be groups and you can still control it, you can still customize it, but the step one is as your data manager, you need to make sure you're switched to access is granted based on roles. And step two, under roles, you have data manager enhanced as the selection. If you don't have that setting, you can email tech support, you can give us a call. It's a quick little thing. We'll go in, we'll change your settings, you're good to go. But this is the one thing because it's at a higher level. You know how you have all those different servers and stuff? This is a little higher to kind of give you all those extra roles for the teacher portal. Does anybody have any questions or does anybody not understand the fact that they need to have access granted based on roles and roles data manager? Now, the second question you might come up with is, well, Luke, I'm not the data manager, but I'm going to be setting up the teacher portal. And like you guys say, we can only have one data manager. So what do we do? How do we solve that problem? And so what you're going to say is like, if that's the case, we'll go in, we'll give your data manager these settings, we'll set them up, right? They'll be good. And what they're going to do is then they're going to go into your account and they're going to then say, hey, not a problem. We're going to make sure we switch you. So the data manager is going to make sure they switch you to roles for teacher portal because you've got to be able to give role access. And step two, they won't necessarily be able to give the data manager, but there's something called a program administrator. Okay. So program administrators, what you're going to be doing as that administrator or who's ever going to be setting up all the teachers and stuff like that. So that's what you're going to be given. Then you have the levels. Now there's a new one called enhanced. This is obviously the simulation, but you would select the enhanced option. And then you'd be set up. So it'd be program administrator and then enhanced, just like where you have a data manager, you have enhanced, but it would say program administrator enhanced. Okay. Now, Good question about, teachers access and things like that. So that's going to be data manager has that data manager enhanced. If you're going to be helping setting everything up and you're not the DM, program administrator enhanced. Then you're going to say, hey, that's great, but what about my teachers? How am I going to set my teachers up? All that stuff. So the easy way essentially is going to be you do the same thing, switch them over to role access, and you're going to say, okay, what options do I have? There's something called teacher. And so if you give them teacher access, you just add it. And now you're going to have these levels of access, a read only. They can only read only. Basic allows them to run some of the things, but they can't see personal identifiable information like socials and things like that. Or if they need to change everything, see everything, take roles, put in socials, you have that enhanced option where they kind of have that higher level. You can also see the role access and everything they can do in the portal side that will show later. Adrian's going to show, but there's kind of like a little chart in there. You can just click on it and it shows all the access, so you can kind of decide. Okay, so just role side, just access control by roles. So far, does everyone kind of understand the idea of if we're going to be using roles, I can assign the roles and it's going to be that control. So if it's like a teacher, you can do this, but then if it's also a proctor, you'd also need to add eTest proctor. If they're also a coordinator, you'd also add the coordinator access, right? Does everybody kind of understand that system? Yeah, program administrator enhanced mimics it. There might be one container option difference. The clerks, so when you see the data entry clerk, that's not for the teacher portal. It does not have teacher portal like rights. That's kind of like the old TE admin access group for TOPS Pro Enterprise. So that's something you want to be really looking at. Caseworker and teacher are essentially the exact same. It's just in name only. That's the difference. Yeah, right now we're just talking teacher portal. There's obviously, the administrator, the counselor, there's more to come. But for right now, the main ones that you will be using is your data manager for the data manager, program administrator if you're going to be helping out, and then assign the teacher. If you like the different name of the caseworker, the caseworker mimics the teacher. And then obviously you've got your proctor and coordinator, and then data entry clerk would not do anything. No, you don't, there's no rights for the portal. So you want to really want to be using it. It's kind of like when you're down here and you have like your T admin access enhanced. It's similar to that for the group side. Yeah, don't it's not going to help you. So don't if you see it, just ignore. Like you guys are here for the teacher portal. It's not going to do anything. The difference are the basic standard enhanced, it has different access levels, what they can see, the rights. Um, I'll give you, since everyone's asking, we'll do a detour since now's a good time to do a detour, I guess. Um, so when you're in the portal and when you sign in after you create your account, there's something called access roles. When you click on teacher, you'll see all the supplemental, but if you click like portal access rights, is it not going to load? There it goes. Let me refresh. And so you can see the different rights they're going to be given. When you go to the portal access rights, you'll be seeing the different levels of like what read only has, what basic has, what standard has, what enhanced has. Um, I don't want to kind of get into this too much right now. Adrian's going to kind of go over it real quick at the wrap up, but I'm, just so you know, there's charts. You can see exactly what they have. So yeah, sorry about that. Let's get back to TE. I probably shouldn't be doing this. But so everyone understands the setup of the roles and the definition of the roles and the access control in that regard, correct? Any questions with just the role side? Okay, I'm gonna say everyone understands that. Now, does anybody in here use or wants to use the groups and is using custom groups and like you guys kind of customize your group. Has anybody done that in the chat so far in this meeting? Where you guys kind of customized it? No. Yes. Yep. Okay. So we've got some mostly no's. So for the people that are pretty much no's, the roles you can see very simple. You just kind of assign the roles and you're done, right? Now, like there's a couple yeses. So with the yeses, it's going to be slightly different, right? So with groups, what you're going to do is you're going to do, the basic one. We're going to, just switch it back to groups. You're going to have to assign a role. That's why your program administrator and the data manager has to have that extra access because you have to have a role. What the role is going to be is it's just a handshake with the system essentially saying, hey, you have access to the teacher portal. It's the bouncer making sure you have credentials, but it's not going to look at those credentials. What it's going to do is it's going to come down here and look at the groups. So when you come down here and say, hey, I'm going to add, my teacher access basic and add that to my group, I've now added this group. Now, this group doesn't have any portal rights. So there's two options you have. One is your individual rights. So if you scroll down under the user, you'll see it says portal access rights. You can then customize exactly what you want them to see. So if you don't want them to see, some of these things, they won't see it, right? You can then give exactly what. So if you don't want to see like the attendance stuff, but you like the class reports, you can then individually select what, or maybe you don't want them to see all the reports. You can kind of select exactly what that is. This is on the individual side. Now, this is a lot of work because you're doing it for each person. So the easier way is we're going to say, hey, we have this TE Teacher Access Basic group. How do we customize our groups? Organization, access groups. Okay. And then we can go into our TE, Teacher Access Basic group. And it's the exact same setup, just like on our individuals. We have that portal access rights at the bottom. And when we click edit, we can now add these rights, right? We can add them all, or we can unselect the rights we don't want them to have. Does everybody understand if you're going to be using the groups, you want to make sure one, you have the role, but then you have the groups, and then you add the portal rights to that group. Does everyone understand that if you're going to be using groups? If you're using the roles, you don't need anything with groups. Obviously, you're just going to assign the roles and you're done. That's how we're going to set up the access for the user. Does everybody get that? Are there any questions about that? Can you guys type your favorite number so I know you're not asleep? It's all the users and the accounts, yes. Okay, 7, 17. Okay, at least you guys are awake. Okay, good. 5, 10, 10's a good number. I appreciate that. Okay. So I'm going to assume everybody understands. This is the most important part right here. This is where a lot of problems arise. Okay. We've got a lot of numbers coming in. I like it. But this is the key right here. So if you kind of forget everything, there's more to it, but essentially, as far as like the access, them creating their accounts, getting into the system. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So when you're doing it based on roles, you don't have to worry about groups. You don't have to assign the portal rights. You don't have to set up the groups. You don't have to assign individual if you do it individual. It's just, hey, these are all presets. You can't customize them. It's just it's ready to go. It's just, hey, you're a teacher. You've got enhanced. It's got everything you ever need. You walk away. You're done. You just save it and walk away. So that's why we kind of recommend the roles because it's just an easier thing. But we know some people have spent the last 20 years building these awesome, I guess I shouldn't say 20, 12 years, I guess, with the new system, building these groups. So if you've done that, you can add portal rights to those groups and you'll be perfectly fine. Okay. Step 2 of how the link works. Okay. So this is the user account, sign up the user account, having that access. Step 2 is something called the personnel record. Okay. So the personnel record is organization, personnel, registration. Okay, so we've got, all of our administrators, they're linked, the user account. So what this is that personnel record that attaches to a class. I'll go ahead and scroll down to some teachers so it makes a little more sense, right? So if we come down here to our teacher, what you'll see is, hey, the teacher, it's attached to user account, teacher 10 at RHAS. So we know it's attached. Okay. So, hey, user account attached to the personnel account. And then if you go under functional roles over here, this is where you're going to see they have their classes, right? So you can see where they have a user account to a personnel account attached to a class. All right. That's the key thing here. For them to see their classes, they have to be attached to the class, right? Just like for them to see students, students have to be attached. Now, if you're going organization, can you do that again? I was trying to write, how do you get to the personnel records? To get to personnel records is organization, personnel, registration. Organization, personnel, registration. So people that have everything set up, again, easy peasy, it's all done. You don't got to worry about anything. For agencies that are just setting up, hey, we just set up our user account. What do we do now? You can click new, right? You can go to new personnel. And here's the difference here. You're going to notice there's something called link with existing user. The same option happens on the user side. So if you can link it to a personnel, it can go back and forth. But if you click link with existing user, you then get to kind of select, hey, that wasn't, assigned to anybody. I can go ahead and link it, right? So now you can create this personnel account and have it linked to that user account. That's the key. So if you don't have one, you're just going to click new, link with existing user, select the user. Are there any questions with the idea of how the personnel can be linked to it, or that you have to have a personnel account? So for your teachers, you've got to have that personnel so it can be linked to the specific classes. If you're a data manager or if you're that program administrator, you're at that higher level where it's just going to kind of be at that admin level and you'll see all the classes. If you're doing the groups, you do have to link them though, because the groups they don't have that extra rights. You've got to link them to all the classes you want them to see. Okay, so that's the difference with the groups and the roles as well. But realistically, you want to kind of use this personnel. Are there any questions, or does anybody not understand that they have to be linked? Is there any confusion with that? This is good. This is good. You guys are the best group I've been with ever. Look at you, all stars out here. Not saying any team names to make anybody sad, because everybody's a winner. Just some people are better winners. All right, now after you have your personnel linked, after you have the users linked, we've got to link it to a class, right? What if one of exactly, if your teacher is not under personnel, this is what we're talking about. So remember what we just did? So we're in our personnel lister. So the question was, how do we link it? Or, hey, they don't have a personnel. You're going to create one. You're going to click new, link with existing user, right? Here's our container, 4908, users, and we're going to select the users, right? Hey, yep, link it together. And then you'll notice it kind of fills out and you're going to link it and create that account. Okay. And we'll say 10 is the greatest number because it is. And you can just save it. So now we have this personnel record. Correct. If you do imports, most of this will be done for you. This is kind of like most of this is already done. You have to do a couple adjustments, but this is us going through the motions, making sure, hey, what is actually going on in the background? This is the hard work you guys got to do as data managers and program administrators. Now there's two ways we're going to link this personnel to a class. One way is we can go to the functional roles, right? Functional roles is what it's called, and you can click new, and you'll notice that the personnel is set up. Hey, it's 4908, administrator grad, number 10. What container are we? We'll say, site 1. What's the class? We'll say that class. We're a teacher, and we're going to start, November 1st, right? And so we can click save. And so now what we've done is we've created this functional role with that class. So if we go back functional roles, we still have this. The other way you can do it is organization, classes. No. If you're a data manager, program administrator, you don't have to link. You see all the classes. As the data manager, you see all the classes. So the question was, hey, as a DM, do I need to link my classes? No. Once you're as a data manager, you see everything. So you don't have to link it individual. This is for your teachers. This is for your groups, things like that, where because you don't want your teachers to see every. If you do, then you can give them program administrator. But normally, hey, they're just going to see their one or two classes, right? That way they're not seeing everything. That's not for a teacher. Here's all of our classes, right? And say, hey, they for some reason nobody can see, the HMAS. So we double click on the class and you see this teachers option, right? So when you click on teachers, we can now click new. And now, so here we have, hey, here's the one thing that's going to be a little confusing that you've got to remember. The class itself is selected. The container is 02 because classes have to be at sites. You want to make sure you change your site if you're going this way, because that user account, our personnel account, is at the 4908. It's at that agency level, right? It's at the higher level. So when we do that, now when we do the drop down, now we can see number 10, now we get that administrator grad 01, right? Now we've got our user and we do the same thing. We're going to say, hey, 11/1 is start date, or teacher, we can save it. And so now we've created that functional role. Okay. Does that make sense where we can do it I know I might be going a little fast. That's why I'm stopping right now. But you can either go into the class definitions, right? Organization, classes, definitions, open up the class definition, and there's a section called teachers, and you can add the teacher that way. Or from the personnel, right? When we go personnel and we open up our personnel user and let's refresh. And so now we have both those classes here, right, under the functional roles. Are there any questions or has anybody ran into problems where, hey, I don't understand what you're talking about, or so it's got to be linked through a personnel. I can't, go directly to the user. It can't go to the user. It's got to go to that personnel record. And the personnel record talks to the user. So it's got to be those three kind of steps right there. User, personnel, then to the class, right, through that functional role. Are there any questions with that?
Luke, if I may interject.
Yep.
So I've had quite a few calls and emails with individuals who link it to a personnel account. It's an old personnel account and it's not connected to the user's account. Can you show them where to verify on the personnel that the user account matches? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep. So that's where we're getting it back into. So remember the personnel, and then which one didn't have one? So this one wasn't linked, right? We had to link it. So there's two ways to link. If you double click, you're going to see where it says associate personnel with another active user. So normally you'll kind of see like, hey, it's set up, it's got the user account, it's linked. But if you're not sure, or if it doesn't, it's not seen. If you click associate personnel with active user, you're going to see that there's only one account left, right? That's not linked. So by clicking it here, it allows you to then link it properly to that user account. Okay. And it's going to go the same way from the other way. So if you go to users and open up here, you can associate. No, you can't. Not anymore. We got rid of that. Yeah, I lied. You can only do it from the personnel side. I apologize. There was a time you can link it. You can link a new one, but you can't associate. So when you do the associate, that's how you can kind of confirm it. If you have a personnel and you don't have a user account, that's what you can do. So if you go to new, you'll have that link option, link with existing personnel. That's what it is. And then you can link it that way. If we have two teachers per class, can they both see the class? Yes. So that's the beauty of it, right? When you link it, they're going to now have access to that class. So you could have 5 teachers. So if you run like an independent studies and it's all just one giant thing and they all work together, you could have 5 of those teachers all in that one class. But each of their user accounts will be linked to a personnel, linked to the class itself, if that makes sense. So you can link it on the user side when it's brand new. If you're double checking it, you're going to do that from the personnel side. Okay. Are there any questions with that? Does anybody in here not have classes? That's another thing I've seen. Has everybody set up their classes, or does anybody never set up classes? They don't know what a class is. They're very confused when I'm talking about definitions and classes and things like that. Or are you too shy to admit that you don't know what I'm talking about? Okay. I'm going to quickly go over it because it looks like I think most of you guys have done classes before. So classes are, organization, classes. Can't see the users. I can see the sites, classes, and students in the TP. Can't see the users. So it could be your access. Um, you've got to be the DM or you've got to be a program, and you just click your agency, and you'll have that on the very first page. You'll have an option. If you don't have the option, if you just see your sites and classes and things, then you don't have access, and you'll want to talk to your data manager. But classes, definitions, and what you're going to do is, you're going to create a class definition. You do not have to do all of your classes need an A22 course category and CIP code. All of your, please check with your state grant agency descriptors to ensure the requirements based on your agency guidelines. No, that for California, I know there's a push out for the CTE stuff. Things are changing every year. You can plug those in. They kind of help you guys that way, but obviously it's one of those. Everybody has different rules. So creating the class, you pick a site, you pick a number, and we'll call it, maybe, and you just save it. So we've created a class definition. That's all there is. After you create a class definition, then you have to have a class instance. So notice the class definition, there's our teachers option, right? We can add our teacher, but what you now need is something called a class instance. The class instance is your program year. This is where you're going to then attach your students and everything. So when you click new on class instance, you now are going to see that you have a program year option. So this is the key here. The definition's at a higher level. It lasts forever. Once you assign a teacher, they can teach that for 20 years. They don't got to change anything. There's no end date. It just keeps going forever, right? The class instance is how you break up the program years from 7-1 to 6-30. And so we'll just leave it, it's a basic skills, 24-25. We don't need anything else. If you're doing attendance and things like that, you can kind of go into your intensity. You can set up your attendance for daily. You can do all that. But for the purposes of how you're setting and how you're linking it, we're just going to create it as simple as we can. Right. So now that we have a class instance, well, how do we assign students? Well, you have class enrollments, right? So when you go into your class enrollments in that class instance for the 24-25 year, now you can go into new, and now you can, select a student and set them up with, 7-1, they're active, and now you have a student in there. How many of you guys are importing your data? Who imports their data? Say I import, like we import, or third party. Yes, me, 1, 2, 3. Good, yep. So most of you guys import. So for the most part, when you're doing your importing, all of this stuff's going to be done, right? You're going to import your teachers. You're going to import the personnel. You're going to import your classes. You're going to import the attendance. You're going to import the SP, your program set. So most of this is going to be one of those things where, hey, all the data is in there, and we're just going to mess with that user side. Now, who doesn't import? Who kind of is doing mostly, hey, we're do a lot of stuff manually, or, hey, I kind of go in, or like I batch insert. Who's kind of doing it that way? Or, hey, we scan still. We got a lot of bunch of stuff offsite. We do a lot of scanning. We've got a lot of, programs. We're running stuff like that. So for you guys that are doing it that way, where you're scanning and doing things manually, that's where this is the key, right? And you're going to know this because you kind of do this, but this is where you might get a little confused where you've got to do a little extra work because you've got to make sure your personnel is linked to the user account and your user account's there and your classes are linked up. Okay. So that's essentially going to be the main problem that you guys might run into is you've got to kind of double check everything a little more. All right. Now, for the ones that import, that's going to be a lot easier because you're just going to be focusing on the user side. Everything should be linked properly, everything should be set up, and your main focus will just be doing either if based on groups and roles. Obviously, we're going to recommend the roles. Now, we're doing great on time. It's only 11:30. We're doing awesome. We've got plenty of time. Before I move on any further and before I kind of start breaking down more stuff, are there any questions into my head? Is there a way to remove personnel from the professional role list? Okay. Yes. So the question is, hey, I'm in the personnel and can we change their functional roles? Can we change things? Can we do things like that? The simple answer is yes. We would probably recommend, hey, that's your history. It's got passed up, but say there's a mistake or an import error or something like that. Organization, personnel, registration. We'll open up our person. We'll go over to the functional roles and we'll say, hey, this is incorrect. Now, there's two things. That's a very good point. You can just delete it. We delete it. The other thing you need to watch out for is if you have imports and you have multiple ones, make sure you're watching the dates. Sometimes you'll have dates that overlap and cancel each other out. So looking at the functional roles, if something doesn't make sense, is a very good idea just to make sure everything makes sense, make sure their classes are. But you can definitely do that. For the most part, we would say you would just open up the functional role, or if you're doing an import, just have their end date, right? So if the teacher doesn't need to see the class, if the class is ending, if it's like a month-long class, you just plug in their end date. And so now that class is going to get dropped off, right? It's not going to be an active class for them anymore. Upon import, teacher user access will all be linked to TE or during adding a teacher from the class in rather than the personnel role. You can do the exact same thing. It's the exact same way, right? So if we go organization, classes, definition. So the question is, what if you're going from the classes side? So class side is the same way, right? So we're coming in, and we're going to our teachers. So there's two teachers, right? Teacher 7 and teacher 8, same exact situation. We don't like it. We can just delete teacher 8. Teacher 8's not supposed to be there. Same thing. If teacher 7 is supposed to be ending, like, hey, they're not supposed to show up, or they have a certain time, we can just plug it and say, yep, they're gonna end today. So it functions the exact same way. Same way if we're adding somebody new, right? So if you're adding somebody new, we're in the class side, class definitions. We selected our class. We go to our teachers. We're clicking new. Again, remember the container now for the class is locked up because we're in it. And then we're going to go to our container and all of our personnel is at the agency level. So we're going to change that to the 4908 to get to the agency side. And then we can just go in and select our teacher and then, plug in our start date for the month. And that's all we're doing, right? So now we've added this teacher from the class side. The new one is where I can't remove the personnel. No, so if you're saying like that's why we don't recommend deleting anything. Yeah, if you delete it, you deleted it. Like it's a live database. And I might not be understanding, and you might want to call tech support, but yeah, if you go in, so that's why we say, hey, never delete anything. Just disable it, keep the history. But if you're going in like deleting personnel records or deleting user accounts, um, then they would have to kind of go in and like delete, go in and delete it that way. And then you'd have to recreate everything if that's what you're saying. But the link is technically still like it's a ghost link if that's what you're getting at, where you accidentally deleted one. Yeah, if you've deleted at that point, it'd be like you can delete everything and then recreate or recreate and then relink if that's where you're going with. Yeah, yeah. There are lots of data managers. Yeah, again, things are going to happen. Um, depends on like everyone's situation is going to be different. I at that point you're going to want to probably contact us. I would follow this if that makes sense. So if you've got the user side, try and do the personnel, try and link it. If you've got the personnel, try and create the user, try to link it. If you're still having issues, give us a call. If it's one of those things where they both got deleted, recreate both. Every scenario is going to be a little different with you because you've got two things going on and they might be linked on the back end still. So that's the one thing where it's a live database, and if things got deleted, you might have to recreate some things and relink those things if that makes sense. But if you've got a few teachers that aren't making sense, just I would give us a call, send us an email, and we can see exactly what's going on because there's a dozen scenarios that could be going on with the personnel and the functional roles and things like that, and with overlaps because you might have to merge the personnel. Yeah, it's just a lot of different things going on there because it might be easier just to merge the duplicate ones or the ones that aren't there and then relink that way as well. So that one's going to be a little more kind of your specific. Nope, that's why we're here. We're trying to might have helped somebody else. Somebody else might have been missing some stuff and now they know, oh, let's relink or let's recreate, relink or delete, lots of different options. You're perfectly fine. Okay, so going back to users. So everybody understands the concept of you have to have a user account, you've got a personnel account, you've got a class, and then you got class enrollments, obviously, and linking all that together, correct? Are there any questions with, I don't understand how this is connected, or hey, I thought I've tried to connect and I'm having issues, or can you show me this again? This is kind of like our little break of wrapping up. You've got a nice little flow chart, but I don't understand this, or this doesn't make sense to me. Does anything not make sense with the groups or the roles or anything like that? Yep, there are YouTube videos that kind of show you the process step by step on the portal page. I'll go ahead and link that real quick. Or someone's probably already going to beat me. Adrian's already got me.
But if we have
And
time, you could show them where to go.
I can share that real quick. Um, so if you ever go to the main page of CASAS, under what's new, there's this thing called Teacher Portal. And when you click on it, you've got, activating your Teacher Portal PDF, setting up the Access Top Tier Enterprise. That's what we're doing. Facts, issues, other people, and then you've got all the videos. So these are quick, short little videos for the teacher, quick, short little videos, setting it up. So that way you kind of have the full process of from data manager side, and then you can give them to like your teachers where they can follow along as well. And then there's also, the presentations and things like that. All right, let me go back. Now, I don't want to assume, but one of the biggest issues we've noticed is, especially like importers, you guys, everything set up. We're going to pretend, everything is linked properly. Everything is perfect. There's no problem. You're going to go, you go in and you're like, hey, everything's perfect. And, I click the edit and Luke told me to, you know, granted based on roles and oh, I need to set up my program administrator. They're going to help me set up it as well, and I'm going to add and I'm going to do all this and I'm doing the enhance and I'm setting up my teachers and I'm going in, I'm doing my teachers and I'm making sure it's roll and I'm adding my teachers and I'm making sure it's enhanced. I'm going through and I'm giving everybody all this access, right? You're going down the list and you're crushing it. You're like, yeah, I'm awesome. I'm the best. No one's better than me. And then you say, hey, Luke, go create your account on the tportal.org site. Go do your account thing. And then they go there and I'm like, how do I do that? What do you mean? No, you just create it, right? You just create it. So this is where who has what agencies have your teachers log into Tops Pro and they have a Tops Pro account, they have a password and they run reports or they log in or they proctor. Say yes, we use TE or teachers use TEs. Go ahead and message in the chat if your teachers use TE. Like, yep, absolutely. So not as many as, like importers, a lot of people did importers, right? We've got a few people, a few more. So for you guys, they know their server, they know their agency ID, they know their user account, they know their password. They're happy, they know what they're doing. You give them access, they can go sign up. They're done, they're awesome. Now, for the people that don't do that, this is where you're going to kind of slow down and say, hey, yes, that's where you're going to do that functional role and you just don't allow them to see it. Exactly, Molly. You just cut off the dates and they can't see their classes. So the question was, hey, can you only allow, so that's through the functional roles. That's how you can allow what teachers can see their classes that way. So if you're brand new and you need to give them access, this is where you'd say, hey, Luke, you're going to be administrator 16 at RHAS. That's your user account. This is the user account. I don't know my password. I don't know your password either, but you know what? I can change your password. I can click change password and I can give you a temporary password and I can do that and say, hey, I've changed your password. I've got you set up. It's 123, go sign in, right? And so now you've given them their password and now you've given them their user account and now they have that option. So this is the key that a lot of people don't understand. You've got to know what their user account is and you've got to know their password. Now they can go in and reset it themselves. They can go in and learn it. So if it's one of those things where some teachers have forgotten, they can disconnect and they have an account and it's like, they rarely use it. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect. But if they kind of semi used it, but not too much, they can do the forgot password and then, get a reset email through TE and kind of log into TE and get, update their password and have that account working again, right? The second part of this is going to be when they're signing into TE portal. So I'm going to change that. Any questions with that? Or before we move on, actually, are there any questions with what do you mean I have to reset a password? What do you mean they have to be given that information? Does anybody not understand that where for them to create their account, they've got to know their user account, they've got to know their password, their agency ID. Like when you're signing in, they've got to know this information as well. Are there any questions related to that before we move on? So that's where, yeah, let me just switch because this is where it's going to create confusion here. And this is where I do need to explain it a little more detailed. So let me just switch now. Okay. So when you go to, your TE portal, you have this option, right? This is teportal.org. This is, you know what, Adrian, do you want to, actually, this is a great transition. So Adrian's going to kind of show you how to sign up, how to do all that. I'm Luke saying, hey, Adrian, your account is, Adrian is awesome at gmail.com, password 123. There's your information. Please create your account kind of thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Luke. So I'm Adrian with CASAS Tech Support. I'm going to stay off camera for bandwidth because I am rural. And I'm going to share my screen. So you should be seeing my teacher portal here in a moment. Okay, does everyone see my teacher portal screen? Okay, good. So I'm just going to bring up the chat just in case. So Luke has given me all the permissions. I am going to sign in as a data manager because this is for data manager training. When I am given all of the access and permissions, I still need to create a teacher portal account. Now, I've already created an account. We'll go through the steps. So you're going to tell your teacher or staff what their user ID is and their temporary password. they're going to go up here to teportal.org. And the nice thing about Teacher Portal is, unlike with TOPS for Enterprise, where it has to be a Windows-based device, Teacher Portal can be launched on any browser and virtually any device. So I'm using Chrome, but you can launch it on Edge, you can launch it on Safari, a tablet, an iPad, a Mac, it doesn't matter. It's not device specific, it's browser. So that's very helpful. So we're going to go and create an account. So we would go to this website. We're going to go to sign in as teacher administrator. Now I already have an account, but let's say I didn't. So I'm going to come down here and sign up as teacher administrator. So here's where it connects to TOPS for Enterprise as far as that username and password. So as Luke was demonstrating on TE, they're going to have a user account. Doesn't work well on iPhone. Yes, I agree. It's probably a little small to see on an iPhone. Probably better on a bigger device with more memory, but thanks for the tip. So you're going to select your server. We're in California, so I would select my California server. This is just your agency ID. So I'm going to use the fictitious one for California that we've created. I would then sign in with my user account that I have in TOPS for Enterprise. So my user account that Luke set up for me in TOPS for Enterprise would be portalteacher1@gmail.com. Now this is my user ID, not necessarily my email. So if my user ID was just Adrian or just Portal Teacher, that is what I would put in. Then I would put in a password connected to that TE account. So if I'm a new teacher and I've never logged into TOPS for Enterprise, that's okay. I just need to know that temporary password that was created by my data manager or my program administrator to be able to create my Teacher Portal account. So I'm going to click next, but it's going to yell at me because I already have an ID. And it's going to take me right to here. It's telling me you already have a setup, but what it would ask for would be a phone number, and you don't want to put your phone number in. So I don't think I can do it, but let's try. Yeah, there's no RHAS. But when this populates, it would populate, create a password for Teacher Portal. So it would be specific to Teacher Portal, and it's going to ask for a phone number and or an email address for the confirmation code. You don't want to put the phone number in because they'll never get the text message, and it's just easier to have the verification code sent to their email address. So once your teacher or staff have created their Teacher Portal account and they've received that activation code through their email address, they can then log in, go to that same web browser address. They're going to click login. I'm logged in as a data manager, so I can see all of my sites. I can see all of my users that are at all of the sites. I can run reports. And this is where Luke was demonstrating the access roles. Remember, he discussed roles versus groups. So if you're ever curious when you're assigning an access role, what they have access to, then you would just come in here as a data manager or a program administrator, and you can look at the access roles. So the reason that they would not get a text message, I'm not sure what the disconnect was. There was an issue with the SMS, the service provider. It's just better to do the email address because we noticed that out of 10, maybe one person got the text message, and it all depends on their service provider. Oh, go ahead. Luke?
Yeah, no, it is just we're thinking it's getting flagged, kind of, we don't know why exactly. So some of the providers allow it. It's perfectly fine that we've got the approval. Some, for some reason, it doesn't go through. It's just one of those weird things. We don't know if it's like on the phone side or the service side because all of our emails, like the E&E stuff, those go out flawlessly, and we use the same process. So we're not sure if it's like a phone specific thing.
Thank you, Luke. And Anna has a great question. Their teacher does not have a phone number in TE, yet they still get please confirm phone number as a pop-up, and it will pop up continuously. I'll go ahead and show you after we go over the roles really quick, where your user or your staff can go in and remove that phone number. So when they created their teacher portal account, more than likely they put their phone number in, and that's why they keep getting that pop-up. Can I remove a user in TE or in TP without affecting? There is that option, and I can show you that as well. So let me just cover the roles really quick, and then we'll go through and we'll visit the phone number issue, as well as, yes, you can remove a user from Teacher Portal without affecting their TE account. So with access roles, if you're ever curious, just to go over this really quickly, you'll just go into your or your Teacher Portal account as administrator, go to access roles, and you can click on any of these categories. We'll go ahead and use teachers. And over here, it shows you all of the different access rights that they have. So if you're wondering what access they have in Portal, you would just click Portal Access, and you can go down the graph or the report and see, read only clearly doesn't have access to this, but enhanced does. And you can kind of peruse this if you would like to see what access is granted by default. So for the phone number question, let's say I accidentally put in my phone number. I would log into my account as a teacher administrator. I would then go up to my icon, my name, click on here. I would go to my account, and I don't have it, but you would go here and it would say change phone number, and you would click on change phone number, and you can remove that phone number and then save, and that will eliminate the pop-up. So if your staff are having issues with the phone number pop-up message, they can log in to Teacher Portal, go up to their username icon, go to account, go to phone number, and it will give you the option to change. When you click change, it will then give you the option to remove and save, and then they won't get that pop-up message anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this, or I guess save it. Doesn't want to do either one. Okay, so as far as users go, if I'm going to go back to my sites, and remember I'm logged in as a data manager, so I have access to all of my sites. Let's say there is a user at site 1 that I no longer want to have a Teacher Portal account. I will go into my site. I will come over here to users. So now these users are going to be connected to the site. So I would click on my users. Thank you. So Luke posted a picture of where to find that remove phone number in the account setup. Thank you, Luke. So let's say I want to remove my Mary Hart. So this teacher will no longer have access to Teacher Portal. So I would just select the account, and I have assign or remove roles, create accounts, remove accounts, or set password. And so what I would do is I'm going to go ahead and not assign. So we're going to remove their account, and I'm going to go back and make sure I'm still on that same teacher that's highlighted. When I click remove accounts, it pops up with, do I also want to delete the TE user accounts or the TE personnel records? If I do not select either one of those, it will not affect TOPS Pro Enterprise. And if I click remove account, it will only remove the account access from the portal side. Now, sometimes these commands will get stuck, or they may not populate correctly. As you can see, we still have Mary Hart, and sometimes it takes a little bit for those to take effect or to reflect on the portal. But if you realize that they are still there, or you are having an issue with removing an account from the portal, then you can always email or call us and we can look further into it. It may be something we have to do on our back end. So that's how you would remove an account. And again, that's also where you can add access or restrict access. Now, your teacher is in their portal account and maybe they say, I can't see my classes. And again, I'm logged in as an administrator. So if they're logged in and they call you or email you stating, I can't see my classes, I have an account, you can actually go in and impersonate that teacher to see what's going on. So as an administrator or data manager, I can go over to my users and say, okay, you know, Cape OTAN, this teacher is having an issue with viewing their accounts. I want to see what's going on. So I would log in, I would select my site if you have multiple. I would find my users, and you can either do it from the lister or you can also type in their user account name. So and that will bring up all of the CASAS, but we wanted the Cape OTAN one. So we'll just go back and I can type it up here as well. So to impersonate, I'm going to click on these keys over here on the right. When I click on the keys, it's going to ask me, do you want to impersonate this user? I would say yes. And I can tell right away that this user has not verified their account because now I am essentially them. I am logging in or impersonating them on the teacher portal. So when I go in here, I can tell that cape@gmail.com, this individual hasn't verified their email address. Now I can skip this, but every time I make a selection, it will continually ask me to skip. So now that I'm logged in as my staff member, I can see, okay, I can see high school diploma. Let me click on their class. Again, it will continually pop up. I can see all of their, information over here. I can also go up here into their account as them, and I can view their account. And I can say, okay, maybe they put their email address in wrong, then I can change their email address here, and it will send them the updated email address for them to verify. Let's say they forgot their password and they're struggling with Teacher Portal and they just can't get in, but everything else is correct. I can also go in as the administrator, impersonate them, go to change password. Now it will ask me for the current password. Maybe we don't know it. So we can just go to forgot current password. This will populate a new window. It will ask you to verify their email address, and it will send a verification code to them. When they get that verification code, they will need to log into their email address and input that code into Teacher Portal. But you do have access as the data manager and the program administrator to go in here and assist your staff with changing their password, updating their email address, and just kind of generally checking to see if everything is set up correctly. Now, for some reason, if you logged in and impersonated them and you were unable to see their class, that's when you would go back over to TOPS for Enterprise and see where that disconnect is. Maybe their personnel account, they have multiple, and the functional role is under the wrong personnel account. It's always good to go back and check, but you can at least log in and make sure that no, they can, or yes, they cannot see their classes. So I know this is for data managers, but let's say you want to run reports. So we're going to go over to Site 1. And we're going to look at all of our classes. And let's say you're administrator or you have an upcoming presentation or professional development, and you need to do a deeper dive into the reports for specific classes. You can have all the functionality of the teacher as you can go into all of the classes, and I can go to my high school diploma. And every time you make a selection, you'll notice your left navigator column here changes. So before we were at classes, now I can tell I'm specifically looking at this class. So all of the data forward from here down is only connected to this class. You're able to see your class dashboard. This is the average for the student. So it's taking the average of all of the tests that are paired. So a pre and a post reading and a pre and a post math, and giving you the average. I can also look at my class details and see what the run dates are, the start dates, what the instructional program is. If you're ever running data and you notice that your DIR or your payment points report is stating that they're missing hours, but you know they're not, you can always check here really quickly for instructional program just to make sure it's set up correctly, and then go edit that in TOPS for Enterprise or vice versa. You can also view class attendance. So you can see the class attendance for the week or last week. And this is good to have in case you're running, statistical data or your training data to see where there's, peaks and lulls in attendance. This is a good report to be able to print up and, propose to meetings and trainings. You can also go to your class reports. Again, you have all of the access to all of the classes and sites. You are not restricted. And you can look at your monthly attendance report. Click here. Okay, I can see for November, so far we're not doing very good. It is early, but there's no attendance. If I go back to October, oh, October looks better. I can see that all of our students attended the days they were supposed to. We had a good turnout and our number of hours was 58 for 3 students. So that's a good report to have if you're looking for attendance data, progression, and those lows and peaks for student persistence. We can also go right back here to our class reports, and any of these reports you can view as a PDF. You can print this or you can download it. So if you want to share this with somebody, you can download it and then email it to them if you would like to. So if we go back to our class reports, you can run all of these class reports right from Teacher Portal. And this is why it's very beneficial as well for teachers and other staff. So in here, if I'm a teacher and I want to run my individual skills profile for my class, I simply need to log in, select my class, go to my class reports, and click individual skills profile. It auto-generates right on its own, and I can even show my grade level equivalent, which will populate right here. Again, I can view as a PDF, print, or download. If I don't want to see the whole class and I'm just looking for a specific student, I can also just go to my students. And here I can see all of my students for that class. This is a fictitious data container, so we're not looking at anybody's real data. I can see if that student is participating in our eWorks program. I can see that student's profile report. And I can also see their individual skills profile report right from this dashboard. Now, let's say I didn't want to see the individual skills profile report for Amy, and I wanted to see a different report. Once I click anywhere in the box, then you'll notice not only am I searching at site 1, I'm searching at my high school diploma class. Now I'm searching for a specific student. So all of the data from here down is all connected with Amy. And I can go right here and look at Amy's assessments, and it will pull up all of their assessments for the current program year. And I can print their competencies, content standards, PCR or PSR, sorry, right from here. So if I want to do a deeper dive, I would go into content standards and I can view their content standards, the date they took it, their raw score, and I can tell right away that they need some more help in geometry, and I can drive my instructional focus towards that direction for that student. Additional assessment results for the co-op. So the question was, can the teacher also see the additional assessment results? There are reports that will show those, but those are more for the test history. So not so much the individual skills won't show it or the content standards, but under the test summary. So that won't be individual students. So if we went back to the class level, so if I just click back here on my high school diploma, it's going to bring me right back to class level reporting. If I go to class reports and I go to student test summary, now this is only at a class level, then it's going to show me in the column if one of these is a co-op, a civics objective additional assessment plan test. This student hasn't taken any. Again, this is fictitious data, and we're also in the high school diploma, but this is where it would show up. So if we go back to classes, and were there any questions on the reports that can be run on the access they have. You can also go into your students and view very quickly what all the students are just for your site. So if you want to just look at your students, not by class, you can go in and look at an individual student as well. Let's say, you know, Mark Smith, their social worker, needs to know how many hours of attendance they had to keep on government assisted funding or government assistance. We can click on Mark. It's going to go right into Mark's account, and we can go to, assessments, transcripts, demographics, educational progress, and pull all of this information up right at the site level. Now you'll notice it does not give us the individual hours for the student because we're at the site level, and we would have to go into the class to get those hours of attendance because they are connected to the class and not just to the site. We can also look at their demographics. So we can come in here, and maybe Mark has been absent for a long time. We can go into their demographics. Again, if you have the ability, you can edit the record. So as a data manager, I can edit this record and make updates. But I can go in, and if they have a phone number, I can give them a quick call and say, hey, what's going on? We haven't seen you in a few days, and kind of check up on their demographic data there as well. TOPS Pro Enterprise and TOPS Pro Client. I haven't heard of the TOPS Pro Client. I was going to say last time I heard of TOPS Pro Client was, I think, prior to 2017. And I think when we did an update, it's now TOPS Pro Enterprise. Correct, Luke?
Yeah, there's been a few, I guess you could say, name changes, but essentially it's just TOPS Pro Enterprise at this point.
And so the great benefit of having Teacher Portal is, and I'm just going to switch screens here really quickly, is I'm going to show you, as I'm sure you're all aware, of the same method for going into a report from TOPS Pro Enterprise versus from Teacher Portal. So let me just share my screen with TOPS Pro Enterprise here. So I'm a teacher. I'm logging into TOPS Pro Enterprise for the first time. This can be very overwhelming. It's also overwhelming for new data managers, seasoned data managers, also program administrators. But you would have to give them guidance to log in. Then they would have to go to reports. They would have to know what report they want to run. So they'd have to go to test results, skills profile, come on, individual skill profile. Then if they were looking for a specific student, they would have to then wait for this to generate, and they would have to go under student demographics. Then they would generate. So there's a lot more clicks involved and a lot more steps. Whereas I'm just going to switch it back again. When we go back into Teacher Portal, you can just tell them to log into their class. Let me just go back to Teacher Portal. So you can just tell your staff member, okay, log into your Teacher Portal and pull the report from there by going into your class. Then you go to your class reports, individual skills profile, boom, done. And there's a lot less clicks involved. Now, especially for individuals who wear multiple hats as teachers and data managers, pretty much everyone in the school district does, you know that the amount of clicks, it is important. I used to help with transcript evaluations, and if we could get the clicks under 30, we were happy. Were there any further questions in regards to Teacher Portal from the Teacher Portal side, or if you want to review TOPS Pro Enterprise access again, anything we can touch base on? I'm going to take the silence as a no, or I've lost everybody. Will any report access be affected if we remove a teacher's ability to access attendance? No. So removing their ability to access attendance, as long as they still have that view or print capability under the reports portion, they will be able to see and view. They just will not be able to take attendance or edit attendance, but they will still have the ability to view those reports. What about ability to access student details? So that depends on the level of access that you're granting them. So if you're granting them group access, it would come under that category of data container access if that group has the capability of editing student details, as well as with the portal. So with the portal, if we go back to our sites and you're curious if they're going to have that access role, we can always, as a program administrator or a data manager, go into access roles and view to see if that access right is checkmarked. Teacher access as basic will give teachers access to attendance. Well, let's check that. So I'm under my teacher role right here as a program administrator. I want to see if they're going to have access to taking attendance in Portal. So let's go down to Portal because we're working in Portal and I can look at our access rights. So Navigator, information, class attendance right here. So basic does not have that functionality at the role level access. Now, as Luke was stating earlier, if you have them set up with group access, you can go in there and allow for this access to be granted and be edited from the group side. But on the role side, since these are set up default, this is how the basic will be. And if you would like them to put in class attendance or have that capability, you would have to bump them up to standard. And here's where you can see if the student, if they have availability to student dashboards, student demographics. So they have the viewability, and you can always see if they have the data access rights as well for editing. And you can just kind of check all of that information here. Another thing to note, if your staff is putting in hours of attendance or if they are permitted or have access to editing or updating information on Teacher Portal, once they save information on Teacher Portal, it is immediately updated in TOPS for Enterprise and vice versa. So in TOPS for Enterprise, if you update student hours or a student takes a test on an e-test, then as soon as your teacher logs into Teacher Portal and they go into their class, that information is instantaneous. It'll go right into Teacher Portal. And again, vice versa, Teacher Portal data that's updated will go right into TE. Same with an import. When you import your information into TOPS for Enterprise, if that is connected with updating information for a class instance or a student in a class or hours of attendance, it will then automatically update that in Teacher Portal as well. Great questions. Thank you. Any other questions? We have about 15 minutes left. If there's no further questions, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I believe Carla wanted to interject and say a few things. Correct, Carla?
Adrian, this is Carla. Let me see if I can share. Yes, no, well, thank you so much for giving me a space. I just want to make sure that folks are aware of the next trainings, which you so graciously posted, Adrian, in the chat, because the tech team is always doing amazing trainings. So I'm just going to go ahead and repost your upcoming Teacher Portal trainings and TE overviews. So that's really it. I want to make sure that everybody's aware of those trainings coming up. But yeah, no, this has been great. I have learned a lot from both of you as well today and the questions. So take it away, Adrian and Luke. I don't have anything further to add here.
Kip might have to do housekeeping as well.
Okay. All right. Well, so Luke, Adrian, and Carla, thank you so much for joining us. There have been some registration links popped in the chat by my colleague, Holly Clark, as well as Adrian, making sure that you guys all have an opportunity to register for the next offering of the data portals or the teacher portal for data managers. there's additional training coming up, and you can always reach out to us at tap@cal.ed.org if you have any questions, or you can always reach out direct to CASAS at techsupport@casas.org. We do ask that you take a few minutes and please fill out the evaluation. The evaluation not only informs how we provide professional development opportunities, but it also provides the feedback that our facilitators use to continue to improve and enhance all of their offerings. So just take a few minutes. The chat is blowing up with thank yous to our CASAS colleagues. So we do appreciate your time and your expertise. It's always valuable. And even if you've seen this one before, you always learn something new. I know I do. All right, you guys. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end it. We'll see you next time. Have a good Tuesday.
Thank you. Enjoy your Tuesday. Thank you.